What's up, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to the channel. My name is Sarthe, and as you all know, I am your go-to guy for covering speedruns, speedrun strategies, and pretty much everything you really need to know for how to analyze these world record speedruns on the Darkmoon Fair Weeks and the Circus. Now, I did release two videos last week on the first two big world record speedrun breaks, but then Salad Bakers went into AQ40 and shattered records more than anyone has ever done before by multiple minutes. The incredible thing is actually this was their second run before there was any runs on the PTR, and we did analyze this on stream, but we were waiting for their run today, or yesterday when this video comes out, to see if they even broke that record again, which we can tell from their run that they absolutely will. They had unlucky RNG in the pathing today, so they will absolutely beat their record again. But Salad Bakers did get the world's first sub 30-minute run. They have the number 1 and number 2 run in the world by over a minute and a half. And so today, we're going to break down every strategy, every pull, every decision that goes into getting a sub 30-minute run in AQ40. Now, as always, if you like this video or you want to see more of this sort of content, make sure to like and subscribe or come hang out with me on Twitch, twitch.tv/Sarthe, where we broke down these speedruns live, and we actually did them with some of the creators that we're going to watch today. So the videos we are going to be using today are from Drast, and also we are going to look at Laddie's POV. And Laddie is the GM of the guild as well as the main tank. So we are going to break down in between these two POVs, as well as breaking down the logs of pretty much every decision that goes through your mind and every pull and every strategy to get this sub 30-minute run. Okay, so as usual, let's break down some things on the log before we hop into the raid itself. The first thing we really want to look at is the kill times of these bosses. Now, this is for the world record speedrun. Their Bodyguard Sarthe was 30 seconds, which is a bit longer than some of the Sarthe runs we've seen. Some of them are about 24 seconds, and even without Recklessness, we saw Progresses was about 24 seconds. So some guilds can kill Sarthe a little bit faster than this, but every other kill is pretty much on par with their speed. The real time savers in this raid is the encounters and trash, pretty much the trash and the big trash pulls. So last month, when we were breaking down the new world records, then pretty much the raid was just run as a normal raid with normal chain pulling, nothing too fancy, pretty much just running straight through. But now we are finally seeing a lot of new strategies be implemented in the raid to pretty much increase how much damage you can do and obviously cut down time. But the real optimization in this raid is these big pulls, these AoE pulls, which we actually saw Progress hitting over 10k DPS on some of their mages. But these huge pulls is where we will shine, and this is really the bread and butter of speedruns in AQ and for the rest of World of Warcraft Classic. We can look at the composition of the raid, and you can see that there's only 3 mages, 1 hunter, and that means, as we've seen from a lot of other guilds, and we're not really going to say too much right now, but hunters are the most important class potentially for the entirety of the speedrun, because this is your puller, and if he is not extremely on point, it will completely scuff the entire raid. They only run 1 hunter, and some guilds have been running 2, having them switch between the pulls, but if one is just as good as being able to pull everything, then they will crush it, because overall damage, as I'll show you in a second, is significantly less for the hunter itself. The hunter's main job and sole job is to pull and consistently pull at the pace that the raid can keep up with. As well as we are seeing 2 warlocks, which we'll see in later runs and many other runs as well, run down to 1 warlock, and that is usually the 2 warlocks for Twin Emperors, but you can actually use 1 warlock with Twin Emperors. You just have a tank tank the other Twin Emperor at first while the Warlock switches over and rotates, because again, like I mentioned, with Hunters and Warlocks, their overall raid DPS is significantly lower than everyone else. So let me zoom up really fast so I'm not covering this with my face, but you can see the Hunters and the Warlocks every time, and this is going to be consistent throughout any speedrun in AQ or any real raid, even with the Hunter buffs coming. The Hunter and the Warlocks are significantly the lowest overall DPS in the raid, with the Warlocks capping out at 329 overall DPS when Nars does 975. So you would need 3 Warlocks just to take care of 1 brown boy. So of course, melee is king, brown is king. We're seeing 3 rogues being run in this raid, which is good for Alliance because they have paladins, as we can see 4 paladins that can just pretty much stun with Hodge on Sarthe. For Horde, they do need to run more rogues. For the most part, the idea is because we don't have Hodge to stun ads on Sarthe, and that is the biggest time loss. Horde have to use, for the most part, Recklessness on Sarthe to keep pace, and Alliance have the blessing of being able to use Recklessness at other times. And we will see only 5 petrifications, which is pretty nice in this run, in all honesty. In most runs, you're going to see a lot more flasks of petrification. There's only 5 that needed to be used, and one of those priests then rebuffed himself with a flask of distilled wisdom. I will go over that during the run, exactly when these are all used, but this is pretty much the standard for a speedrun. We will see in most speedruns actually more, and for Horde you're seeing upwards of 20 to 30 flasks of distilled wisdom being popped, and if you get really unlucky with RNG for petrification, you might have to do that even more. But pretty much every melee in the entire guild here for Salad Bakers is bringing at least 2 flasks of petrification, as well as a renewable flask of the Titans in case they have to use the petrification, which will override the Titans. So at the end of the room that we will talk about in a bit, they will have to use that flask of the Titans again. Okay, straight into the run. Of course, again, like I mentioned earlier, we are going to look at 2 different POVs, Lottie's POV and Drast's POV. Lottie the tank and Drast a warrior. So we are going to look at 2 different POVs. The first real thing, the breakdown here, is to wait until the Obsidian Eradicator is padding away or starts padding back. Really, when it starts to pat back is when you pull all the ads and then you just bring it in, cleave it down. It's not really scary. On this run, Salad Bakers actually used Recklessness on most of their warriors here on this first pull because they weren't anticipating getting that sub 30-minute pull. And also you will see a lot of Death Wishes being used, Mighty Rage Pot being used, and if anyone has it, Badge of the Swarm Guard. Badge of the Swarm Guard on a pull like this is the most useful trinket in the entire game, and it is probably the most underrated trinket for every guild that's not a massive speedrun guild. And then one thing I really want you guys to know, on a speed run, on the Anubisath Sentinels, you don't need to really call out which target you're killing. They don't actually full heal when you kill them. So, and you can also batch kill them if you need to, but you just, with this much DPS, you just burn them down. It doesn't really matter. The only thing is if it's Thorns, you usually don't kill that first. Like, just, if you notice it's Thorns, literally don't kill that first. That's it. And then they instantly are in there DPSing the boss. You can see that after the very first pull, Lottie actually swapped off of his Diamond Flask to Earth Strike, and that's pretty much a standard again in every speed run today, or every parse run, or every run in general. There's enough downtime in between every pull, and we have enough on-use trinkets that in between every single pull, every time you're dropping combat, you want to swap your trinkets to get the most out of your trinkets. The next thing to notice is we do see the weak aura for real or fake here. So if you have that weak aura, which I could link in the description if you guys want, just let me know. I'll link the description or the weak aura for you, that you can use a weak aura to see which one of these Scarum splits is real or fake. That just pretty much cuts down your time of knowing this one's going to instantly die or this one's going to live for a little bit longer before it teleports. It will have more health, so it's just easier there. You focus down these pulls and then pull towards the next pack. The Hunter actually tries to never dismount. As you can notice, the Hunter is still moving forward, and this is really where a lot of the time saving comes. A lot different than last month. Really, last month what we saw was just everyone do normal pulls, no real double pulls, just no triple pulls. Everyone just do these normal pulls all at a calm pace, just smooth, killing everything down. The focus is always on the Brainwasher in all of these pulls, and you'll notice that they do not cleave until the Brainwasher is done, and they wait to kill these ads until they are in the corner. Now this, in this run, is the most scuffed pull. Actually, technically not this pull. The next pull is the most scuffed pull in this run. That is the world record speed run. But in their run today, their newer run, it was significantly more clean. So the thing here is the hunter double pulls this pull inside of the bug trio's room. You send your pet at one of them and then you body pull one of them. So they're pulled at the exact same time. This was scuffed in quite a few other speed runs, but all you need to do then, if they're all there at the right time, is kill the Brainwashers and then try to pull these Guardians into that little corner down there. They nest up actually in this run and start killing the Guardians before they needed to. They also have the Warriors pulled already. Another person was pulling the Warriors, which is just clean to have that all pulled together. In an ideal world, they would have pulled everything together and killed it all together using Masterwork target dummies, which is what they do in their next run. It should have beat this record. They just had unlucky RNG for the most part. They can easily cut off about 1 to 2 minutes right now with their current gear, and I think they're going to cut that down even more. Lottie gets knocked all the way up here, and like I mentioned, guys, this is their most scuffed pull in here. Lottie actually gets knocked up one more time in a second, and this is a little bit scary, but it actually works out perfectly because their hunter puller is moving forward, pulling the next packs, the next Warriors and Guardians, and Lottie gets knocked directly into these. This is the sickest, most lucky thing ever, so that he can pick up all three Warriors before everything else reaches the group. He picks up all of them and can move them out of the way. You will notice in this group, everyone's using Masterwork target dummies down there, and Lottie can just honestly sit here and slowly but surely pull the Warriors in as they start doing their AoE, but make sure that he doesn't get knocked away too much. And then as everything starts dying, he does want to get back in there into the group. He does end up getting knocked away a little bit there, but you can notice right here, all of those dead Masterwork target dummies. All of those Masterwork target dummies. So people aren't dying ideally. One person does die. Yorgi does die there. But the big play there is the Masterwork target dummies. And they do want to do this pull before moving into Bug Trio so that they can just mount up after Bug Trio and run all the way to the pull right before Sarthe, which, as you will see in a minute, has already been pulled also after they kill Bug Trio. So the big thing in these AQ speedruns, the biggest thing in general is one, cleave. Cleave is massive, but just these pulls. Whoever is doing your pulls completely constitutes the pace of the raid. Most of the pulls are Flask of Petrification pulls, in all honesty, with these hunters moving forward and getting these really big pulls so that the group can go in with either the mages or the warriors and just AoE down like crazy. The bosses don't really have any unique strategies to them. They're pretty cut and dry, in all honesty. There's not too many things you can do to change up the boss strats other than things like pulling them towards the exit so that you have a slightly shorter run time to the next pull. But earlier in the week, we did see before or after Bug Trio, they did pull the next group here with the Flask of Petrification. But now we are seeing every group go for pulling all of these during the pull before the Bug Trio, so pretty much just chain pulling before Bug Trio. And we're going to move up again, like I mentioned. Here's where they're mounted up with, you'll notice, mount speed items, the carrot on the stick, mount speed items, and a mount speed set with gloves and boot enchants is just going to cut down on some transitionary time. And then they want their hunter to have pulled this group already and be Petri Flask hard in the corner. Now, in their later runs, this was done slightly tighter than it was in this run, but it really wasn't that bad whatsoever. The timing was actually pretty perfect. And then Salad Bakers is tanking them right here, where if you do tank them in this corner instead of one of the back corners, like where Onslaught prefers to tank them, you can get knocked away over this little lip. There's a little edge right here that you can get knocked away from. Now, if you get knocked this way, here are the two plays you have. One, you are knocked away, you are stuck, stay out. That's it. If you get knocked away and you can't get back in a good position, stay out. Because if you get knocked again in this direction, like if you try to run back over and get knocked, you're pulling another Guardian pack, which is wasting probably 30 seconds to a minute of your entire raid's time. That is a huge, huge mess up on your behalf. But you can actually jump back over right here if you do end up getting knocked. Of course, there is a spot here that you won't move at all, but if you do end up getting knocked, you can jump back over, and that is the play you want to be doing. As you'll notice here, people are not, except for, scary at the last second, running around there on the left side. That is the sketchiest thing, really. Now we move into Battle Guard Sarthe, the big brain play, or just the easy thing for Alliance because they are so much luckier than Horde. Here is Big Sappers, Hand of Justice. A rogue will follow up all of the initial stuns so that they can kill things before you actually see any of the whirlwinds or the knockbacks go out. So you'll hodge and then basically just follow it up with a kidney shot, in all honesty. And if the ads aren't dead yet, then you will see people actually use something like a Vanished Cheap Shot. Everyone is using a lip so that they can stay in as long as possible and kill the boss without having to run out. And next is the next big play. So Salad Bakers is about to swap on their speed items. And I'll go from here to Drast POV because it's quite hilarious what happens. But Salad Bakers all switch on their speed items. You'll see that we are getting our carrot on a stick basically put on. And once everyone gets back in combat with this here blue boy, everyone's going to slowly but surely get knocked off of their mount. They had a paladin run ahead of everybody else. Basically, you want to send anyone ahead, a puller ahead, to pull all of the ads that you can. The second that Sarthe dies, though, because if you are in combat before Sarthe dies with these ads, it can scuff it. Have someone run ahead. Alliance have the luck of having paladins who can use their bubble. They can use their speed items as well as like trinkets, boots. The boots are extremely useful, goblin and gnomish boots, and they can also use a swiftness potion to move forward as far as possible so the rest of the raid can just mount. They're already about halfway through the gauntlet. They're almost halfway through the gauntlet with these speed items. And so that's just extremely convenient. A lot of people also will then have their nifty stopwatches equipped, and all of them ideally do have their swiftness boots or whatever boots they're using, goblin, gnomish, whatever boots they're using. And so Salad Bakers really does the fastest gauntlet in the entire world so far. This was just the most clean, and everybody is pretty much going for a gauntlet at about this pace. And I'm going to double speed it because you can see how quickly they're moving, mostly warriors as well, because warriors can continue to charge through. And you'll notice that all of these people up here have used some sort of speed items. Drast actually gets dazed there, which is unfortunate. In an ideal world, you do also drop combat for a second so that you can switch your items back to your normal gear so that you can move in to kill Fankris the Unyielding. And in the later runs, I don't believe in this run that they do it. You can see that he did swap on Diamond Flask, but in the later runs, after Onslaught did it, there's this real massive popularization of every single warrior using Diamond Flask sets. You do want to pull these crawlers as usual into the boss, and then you'll see the hunter goes forward again to get the second group of crawlers. The ideal thing with two hunters would be to be able to get both crawler groups at the same time for the most part. But that's not really too intimidating. It doesn't save too much time in case you do get some of these hatchlings. They got kind of screwed by getting these drones, but it's not really much of an issue. They just want to move into pulling the crawlers as fast as they can. And then onto Viscidus in a second. And we will watch this specifically. So you'll notice Drast is going to swap on his gear. Give it a second. His Viscidus gear right here is the Diamond Flask and the Barov Peasant Collar. The issue is that he just reswapped his Diamond Flask, which means he won't be able to use it in time. Also, he ends up using his healing gear first before his Nature Res gear. So this is the The Diamond Flask set, he falls down because of it and screws himself. Now he ends up being pretty much useless on the Viscidus fight. So we will swap back down to Lottie's POV, but I wanted you guys to see it because it's pretty hilarious. But you can notice right here, the double Flask of Petrification. Pretty much every melee is running the double Flask of Petrification. Now straight into Viscidus, you will notice the Diamond Flask set was used for Lottie, and he's not even main tanking the boss, but most people in this raid will be using Barov Peasant Collars. So Barov Peasant Collars are extremely useful here. We're also seeing some guilds use the Cold Basilisk Eye. It honestly is probably more of a scuff than it is to actually get a benefit out of it. You have to all use it as the very first ability, which would be 40 of these right at the beginning, but it doesn't save you that much time in all reality, and everybody has to be on the exact same page. It has to be the first ability. But Barov Peasant Collar is used because once Viscidus ends or enters his frozen phase where he needs to get shattered, it is the amount of melee attacks that hit him to shatter him. And with the Peasant Collars, it is literally instant. So having your guild use Peasant Collars is the ideal thing here. Also, we are seeing a lot of either Nature Res gear or non-Nature Res gear. The reason for Nature Res gear is ideally to save your healer's mana for the most part. Next up, we are going to see mount sets being used again, guys, and I will swap over to double speed again because we don't need to watch this in slow. Mount sets. The one thing I do want to mention is that it may be slightly faster to jump down there, and instead of getting knocked, because if you take damage on these mounts you get knocked off, you could dismount mid-air and then it would save you the GCD of falling and getting dismounted, which does cause a GCD, and then having to mount up. It would just save a little bit of time. We actually saw Onslaught in their run around and run back down. They may have timed it out to be slightly faster, but the issue really is with Onslaught's run, it does risk like people falling down, and we did see a couple people fall down in their run. Next, again, the mount speed is huge. Mount speed sets do save enough time in this raid that they actually make a large enough difference. And now we are going to see the big pulls before Princess Huhuran. Lottie moves in instantly, has already swapped his trinkets to get Earth Strike and Badge of the Swarm Guard, which again is the most useful trinket pretty much on trash in the game. We are going to notice that they haven't yet used their FAPs, but here is the big pulls incoming. All of these big pulls are coming. They do want to grab this entire room if they can, and that's where you will see people use FAPs, free action potions. The reasoning here, of course, is that the poison effect that you get makes it so that you are pretty much almost one shot from the stingers when they charge you, but the poison is a slow as well. So if you use a FAP, which lasts for 30 seconds, which can be this entire room, you will be immune. So you see all of these FAPs here. You will basically be completely immune. Next, we're going to see him swap off his trinkets. As usual, is pretty much just a consistent trinket swapping. And this pack, they actually get super lucky with the padding, but this could have been cleaner. So they're just going to pull this with the boss, but they could have cleaved this all down even better. Unfortunately, they do a little bit of an awkward situation where they don't stack these perfectly on top of each other. In an ideal world, they would have already by now pulled that group into the boss, but you can see there's two stacks here. They are not all stacked together. People are a little bit in between the two and don't know which to kill until everything starts finally getting stacked up. So this was really nice padding, almost perfect padding, but it again could have been slightly cleaner, saved them a little bit of time if it had just all been pulled in together. You'll notice that some people actually ended up using their Barov Peasant Collar because they did drop combat in enough time to get that up. And that's basically just to like potentially eat a sleep so people don't have to get dispelled for the sleep. Some guilds are choosing to not dispel the sleep. In a speed run, it's most likely more optimal to dispel the sleep. If people do get slept, it's 3k damage for your entire raid, even if it's right before the end rage, because you pretty much kill the boss in 1 to 2 globals with as many melee as you have after the sleep. Now this first defender is Thunderclap and Meteor, so they just pretty much want to stick as 2 groups, 1 in, 1 out. It's not really intimidating, but this next one is where we'll see kind of something a little different from what we had seen before, and it's something that I mentioned in my videos before, but this is where we're going to first see the Flasks of Petrification being used. So you see Right Mate gets the first plague, but the next plague is going to go on to a melee, Sajana, who should instantly Flask of Petrification. As you'll see right here, Flask of Petrification, pop it off. You can use a cancel or a macro to instantly use the Flask of Petrification to pop it off. So just instantly do that, get rid of the plague, keep DPSing. Nobody needs any downtime from getting away from the ads, and they actually have pretty good RNG to have very few plagues in this section. So again, I will double time the speed because I don't know if we need to watch it all at the normal pace. They get the explosion there, which means that they all want to run towards the next boss or the next ad, just pull it. They get the Shadow Bolt Volley, which means they all want to stack up, and they kite this towards the next room. A lot of guilds don't do the kiting towards the next room. It just saves a little bit of time in transition, and that's like the big idea here. And again, in this run, this early version of the run, they were using 2 warlocks, and in later versions you will see 1 warlock being used on Twin Emperors. It just saves you guys so much time to use 1 warlock on Twin Emperors because the overall raid DPS of having another warrior is just that massive. The next real thing on Twin Emperors, as we're going to see here, Lottie gets the aggro very, very quickly, and this doesn't really matter. A lot of people are kind of talking about how Salad Bakers uses a different spot for their Twin Emperors tanking, which they think is a closer spot than things like Onslaught's or Progress's spot for the transitionary period, or like closer so that the warriors can run in between the two faster. That's actually not really true. The distance between the bosses can be static, right? The difference or the range between where they start healing is a specific range. So you can set that up in any situation. Actually, Onslaught runs these bosses towards the exit of the room, which is basically the entrance of the room, and that actually saves some time in transition after the boss dies to get onto the next pack. So even though Onslaught actually had a slower Twin Emperors fight, you do see them actually technically have a slightly better strategy for the most part, because they don't actually lose any uptime on the boss as they're moving the boss, especially for them who have basically no ranged. So it was a slightly better strategy. And then here, there's actually a call to stay in on the boss as long as possible. So on the first side, they are staying in on the boss as long as they can until the first transition. And then they are all using intercepts. Some people are using swiftness abilities, speed pots, but ideally you want to save your potion CD for the pack after this. And then they are on this next transition going to actually move early. So you can see the teleport is actually happening right here. It's about 8 seconds away, and you're going to see that the call is made early at about 5 seconds for all of the melee to move. And this could be unlucky if you get really bad RNG where, you know, sometimes the boss doesn't transition with the DPM timer at all, but all of the melee are right on the boss and DPSing right away. This Scarab gets pulled in directly on top of the boss so they can cleave it down, which is just perfect, and they'll kill the Twin Emperors before it can transition again. So with 2 transitions, these guys are killing Twin Emperors. So we're seeing about 1:30 Twin Emperors kills here. And actually in their newer run, they were using Recklessness here on Twin Emperors. It actually ends up being a longer Twin Emperors. The best places to use Recklessness are still debatable, but it's always going to be one of the longer fights, but ideally it's a fight with really high uptime. So if we look at everything, right, you always want to use Recklessness on a fight that has really high uptime. If you can get a 24-second Sarthe without using Recklessness, and then you're going against people that are using Recklessness and getting also a 24-second or a 22-second Sarthe, that insane 30-minute CD did not save you time. It was not worth it. But for Horde, you kind of have to. But for Alliance, they have the option of using it on Twin Ems, Oro, or Cthulhu. A lot of guilds will use it on Cthulhu. Also, it's a little bit debatable and up in the air. Cthulhu is the longest fight, but you do want to cut down whichever fight you can save the most time. If you could kill Twin Emperors before it teleports 2 times, that would be the most ideal. So if you could kill Twin Emperors before it does a second teleport, that would actually cut out like 30 seconds of the fight. Another thing I want to mention really quick on Twin Emperors, which I mentioned in the last video, is that they have a warrior using Bashgooder. And this is basically reducing the boss's armor by another 600. Now, Salad Bakers only has one warrior using Bashkooter, and that is solely because only one warrior has farmed it so far. In pretty much every other speedrun, every guild is using so many of these. Pretty much every warrior is using a Bashkooter in their main hand for the very first global to instantly get this 600 armor debuff on the boss. And then in an ideal world, it would be your exposed armor rogue using Bashkooter to keep up the debuff on the boss. But you could, if you need to, use a warrior to keep up Bashkooter debuff or Ribbon Spike if you are Horde. And both of these items are completely soloable to farm. These are rare spawn drops from Lower Blackrock Spire. Every single guild should have people with these. Every single rogue should farm Bashkooter. I just have to say that. Every single rogue should farm Bashkooter. The lucky thing for Salad Bakers is a lot of their big pumpers do have Badge of the Swarm Guard, as you'll notice. They have gotten really lucky with getting a ton of badges. So they're fine with not reducing the armor of the boss as much as every other guild that doesn't have a crazy amount of badges. But every guild should have some people with Bashkooter, or if you're Horde and a warrior, you do want to get Ribbon Spike. And one more time, I will mention this, but in the Discord channel, in my Discord channel, if you are a Twitch sub, there is a video there showing you how to solo this. So there's no real excuse for you not to have this item. Moving on to the post-Twin Emps trash. We do see a lot of Slayers. As usual, you do know that every guild, pretty much every guild in general, is fishing to make sure that they don't have that many Mind Slayers in their ID. There's nothing really too crazy that actually goes on in the post-Twin Emps trash. There's nothing really that you can do. The main thing to mention, or the main notable thing, is that you want to AoE down these Slayers. You want to be rotating your trinkets as often as possible. You want to use as many CDs as you can to get as much overall raid damage done. And you need those Slayers to be stacked really well. And every single melee is using a Greater Stone Shield pot on CD. Literally on CD, and your hunter's only job is to pull to the group. That's it. Your hunter's sole job is to pull to the group. They are not here for DPS. A hunter is the most useful person in the entire raid, and this is the pull with the double Mind Slayer, which means they do want to pull the champion. There was a call to try to batch kill these Mind Slayers, and I'm going to go back to normal speed. This one gets instantly globaled. It doesn't even matter. The DPS is too good. This actually cuts them out sometime. Right there, instantly global. That just cuts them out on some time, because they're going to either have to not DPS this next Mind Slayer at all and try to move forward, which is what we're going to see, which doesn't let them actually mount up. That's like the fear here, right? They can't mount up right now. So that's just unfortunate, but like they have too much DPS, literally too much DPS. They instantly globaled that down. There's nothing they could have done. Then we're going to move on to another Slayer pack, which is basically the same thing. You're going to see people renew their Greater Stone Shield pots and then go after the champion and move forward again. In this room, you're going to see the first pull be pulled, but then the Eradicator pulls will be double pulled at the exact same time. And that's something that is relatively new. We were seeing solo pulls last month, but this month we are seeing everybody just pretty much pull everything you can at the same time and cleave it down. Although you can't really pull two of these Slayer packs at the same time. You'll probably die. Even if you use like target dummies or something, just any of the Blade Flurries, unless you used a lip and your recklessness and did like a triple pull and killed them all in time, there's no real reason to risk it. You'll probably lose people. As they batch kill those, they're going to move into the next Slayers and then pretty much do the same thing. There's one more pack inside, and then they're going to do the double pull again. It's actually kind of like a single pull, because they do have the Mind Slayers here. That was technically slightly slow, and that's probably the slowest pull in the entire raid for them. That pull could have been pulled earlier. Somebody gets feared into these Eradicators, so they will just, or Nullifiers, so they will just have to swap targets, kill those, kill the champion on top of the Anubisath Warder, and get the next pull going. So the next pull actually is the second pull that is actually a slightly slow for the raid, because that could have been pulled into the group slightly faster, and that's all though. And you did notice right there that the Mind Slayer was pulled away from the entire raid before actually people move in to kill it, or before anyone kills it. Just the range will kill that. Next, we'll move into Oro. A huge thing on Oro is to have the Fetish of the Sand Reaver, so warriors can drop their threat. Oro threat is extremely clutch. And you'll see actually the Whipperroot tuber now. I'll show you guys how many Whipperroot tubers were used throughout the raid, but it's just basically like a free health potion. It helps out your healers, so it's very clutch in speedruns to use it pretty much off of CD. Everybody is ideally using Death Wish here, and now it is off CD for Drast, so you're seeing a lot of Death Wishes. And Lottie, as we go over to his view, is going to try to get back on top of threat. So here is Lottie's main tank POV, which is just going to be him facing the boss away from the raid. Of course, he used his Earth Strike first, but he doesn't have Death Wish back up yet. And so he is going to eat the sweep. He actually resists the sweep or parries it, and then eats the Sandblast, loses his threat, gets dropped all the way down, and you will see that Miosin actually does do that perfectly, goes in and picks it up. Now Lottie is going to use Badge of the Swarm Guard along with his Death Wish to try to pump as hard as he can to get back on threat. Last week, or earlier in the week, we saw him use his Recklessness here to try to get back on threat, and he's not actually getting all the way up there. It looks like Traxie and Cadet. Traxie was slow on a lip if he did have the lip CD, or slow also on a Greater Stone Shield, because if you pull this and you don't want to lip it off, you need to Greater Stone Shield or you will die. So that is where the unlucky death is for Traxie. Talisevo is dead though, so there's 3 deaths on this boss. That's pretty much the worst case scenario. And then back to mount speed items, guys. Mount speed items, this is it. At this point, they knew that they had the world record. 26 minutes after Oro is dead, 26 minutes in. This is the world's first sub 30-minute clear of AQ40, and we absolutely will see more clears even faster, but some of the healers have to stay behind to res the 3 dead. And the other thing that actually holds them back a little bit here is that the people that died aren't able to DPS. Now, we do see Lottie switch on to a Diamond Flask set before pulling Cthulhu, which means he has some insane plus healing. Along with his Bloodthirst, he is pretty much infinite aggro. Like, no one can do anything. He's going to have aggro. Everyone can then get in on the boss, and we are going to see normal double stacks. In later raids, we do start seeing people use actual triple stacks here. So some guilds are using triple stacks. Onslaught actually moves towards the quad stack on the boss because they have all melee, and they actually have the fastest phase 1 of Cthulhu, and that's really what it is how much damage can you do early. But the quad stack is the scare. Here's the triple stack. You'll see that Karks is now in on top of the group, and all of the triple stacks are happening so that they can burst down phase 1. It just does mean you do take quite a bit of damage. You can use nature protection potions here to mitigate that, which means you can't use a FAP or a lip on Oro because you need that potion CD. Then they will be able to drop combat, switch trinkets. You'll see here as he swaps off of Diamond Flask onto Earth Strike, right there. Switch trinkets as you drop combat. Unfortunately, actually, no, those early deaths, those deaths are from the Paladins using Divine Intervention. So the Paladins will use Divine Intervention on the Priests, so the Priests can no longer be in combat and can't be sucked up into the stomach. And then we'll also see some of the other people use Flask of Petrification. So let me go here, Flask of Petrification, so that people, again, can't get sucked up into Cthulhu's stomach. The real ideal thing here is to increase the odds of warriors being sucked up into Cthulhu's stomach because they have 2 advantages. Rogues are good too because they can do a lot of damage, but warriors are way better because 1, they can do more damage, and 2, they can intercept into the tentacles within Cthulhu's stomach, which actually significantly cuts down their transitionary time between swimming. Like, a rogue swims so slow through the stomach, it's so annoying. And you'll see that they actually get lucky and get all 3 people on the inside as warriors. So that was great RNG. None of the mages, I don't know if all of the mages actually use petrifications. I don't think so. As we checked earlier, actually, the mages aren't using petrification flasks, and none of the rogues go in. So the ideal is to get 3 warriors inside and blow it up and just bring it down to its weakened phase pretty much as fast as you can. If guilds end up saving their recklessness for this phase, they actually could use their recklessness as they get in. So any of the warriors that get in can use recklessness, and then any of the warriors that don't can use recklessness on the weakened phase, just to cut down the time of killing Cthulhu. This is basically everyone just straight pumping, and you can see Lottie is moving or shaking his actual screen quite a bit. He's actually pretty deep inside of the boss, and that's because he was trying to whirlwind, and that's why he's jumping as well. If you're deep inside of the boss and jump, you can hit whirlwinds. I actually pulled it off this week, and I hit all of my whirlwinds for phase 2, so you can absolutely do it. But even if you are inside the boss, you need to get slightly closer, and if you get slightly too close, you will get knocked back. And if you don't have the GCD because you just used an ability and you don't have the rage or something for intercept, you are really screwing yourself, so it might not be worth it. And then there it is, they kill the boss. That is the world's fastest run of AQ40. 29 minutes and 37 seconds. Massive congratulations to Salad Bakers. That was their first big run, and I actually probably forgot to mention this one pull, but before doing Hoo Hoo Run, as you do another really big trash pull in that room with the FAPs, you can also use, again, Masterwork target dummies to just make sure that people don't take too much damage and die. So Masterwork target dummies are one of the most clutch things in the entire game, as well as FAPs and lips. But also the Diamond Flash set requirement pretty much for every warrior is becoming the new meta, and figuring out where to use recklessness. This was an incredible run, and their other run was slightly better, or could have been slightly better. It ended up being 30 minutes and 3 seconds, so it was the world's second fastest run, and this was actually before the PTR came out, so that is a massive achievement. They can't practice their strats. They could, of course, go onto private servers, but it's not the exact one-for-one thing. So huge grats to Salad Bakers. If you do want to see me do more coverage of speedruns, of course, come hang out with me on Twitch, twitch.tv/Sarthe. I am streaming every day during the week at 5 p.m. and sometimes during the weekends. Just join the Discord channel and I'll let you know when I'm going live. So make sure to like and subscribe if you like this sort of video, and I'll see you all on the next one. Peace out.